Hello everyone and welcome back to the Skirata Gaming channel for another video. My name is Spencer, better known around here as ORIGINALBONJOVI. We bring you guys new Call of Duty content every day on this channel. We get best class setups, tips, tricks, world record gameplays, and more. If you're into Call of Duty, this is the right place for you. But in today's video, I'm going to be covering something a little bit different than usual. One of the questions that I see most often every week on Twitch, on Twitter, on all kinds of social media: what is 1615? What does it mean? What does it represent? But in order to answer that question, we have to start with something a bit more fundamental. Who was Skirata Rebel? Unfortunately, we're at a point now where there's only 3 people active in the team who knew Rebel directly: myself, Lightning, and Zuma. For a lot of our newer members, I know it can be difficult to give a good answer. They know the information behind it, they have the general facts, but without the first-hand direct experience, it really isn't the same. So that's why we're here today. I want to share with you guys who Skirata Rebel was and what 1615 represents. In order to do that, we have to go back to November 2016. The Black Ops 3 season had just concluded and Infinite Warfare had begun. In those days, Skirata Gaming wasn't too big into content. We were more or less just a pub stomping team. We tried to get people together to drop nukes, to get high kill gameplays, and stuff like that. We actually had open recruitment, so if you wanted to join the team, all you had to do was fill out the application on our site, and if it looked good, we'd get back to you and you'd probably get into Skirata. Needless to say, we don't do that anymore, but that's where we were back then. I remember one day toward the end of November, I got an application from someone by the name of Ethan Fargo. He went by Rebel 1615 on PlayStation. The one thing that really caught my eye about his application was the fact that after he listed all of his qualifications to join, he said thank you. You have no idea how few people will actually bother to put manners in their applications, but I digress. I got in touch with Ethan, we partied up on PlayStation, and it was clear to me from the very beginning that we were going to get along great. We had similar backgrounds, both being from New York State originally. We had similar beliefs and interests and values, and we just got along really well. Shortly thereafter, we welcomed him to the team. I don't think he was even in Skirata for a week before he asked me if we could use a manager for Modern Warfare Remastered. I had been part of the team for more than 5.5 years, and in that time, I had never ever promoted someone so quickly after joining. I was skeptical, but he made a case and he sold me. So we promoted him to manager, and he did that for a while. A couple months later, I had just come back from MLG Atlanta when we had some changes in our senior leadership that resulted in an opening for the North American director position. By then, Ethan had been part of the team for a little while. He did really well as a manager, and so he was a natural fit for the position. As the North American director, Ethan basically had control of the organization on this side of the Atlantic, and at that point, we probably had around 40 to 50 people, so that was a pretty significant role. After that, he really became my right-hand man. We'd both get home from work and we'd hop in game, we'd play for a while, and then we'd just sit in a call and talk about the history of the team, or the current state of affairs, the future, life, you name it. Ethan was usually a pretty practical, hands-on guy. He liked to be on the front lines, as it were, you know, working with people, solving problems, and that sort of thing. He generally shied away from the big picture, but when he took on the mantle of director, he really stepped up to the plate. Growing up, he was a big fan of FaZe and SOAR. He was very familiar with our content, and it had a profound impact on him. He could see the potential in our own team to do the kinds of things that they were doing. That all began with streaming. Twitch was pretty big at that point, but it wasn't as big as it is today, so YouTube gaming was our primary go-to for streaming. We'd sit there in a call for hours, going through the directory, clicking on people, going in and chatting with them. I tended to be more reserved, but Ethan was always very upfront with people. He'd just go in and say, hey, we're part of this team, this is what we have to offer, we like what you're doing, would you like to join? It didn't always work, but sometimes it did. It wasn't just a matter of recruiting new streamers to the team though. He wanted to push our current members to take their content to the next level. But Ethan wasn't about to ask people to do things that he himself wouldn't do. He wanted to lead by example, and so he started streaming as well, and he did it a lot, and he loved it. He was the one that actually got me to start streaming. I didn't have a very fancy setup at the time, none of us did, you know, no Elgatos, we were streaming from our PlayStations, but it was a start. It was laying the foundation for what would come later on. Ethan wanted a full, developed, quality stream team. He also wanted us to start pumping out YouTube videos. I had a pretty modest goal for our channel, but when I asked him what he thought we should do, he immediately said, we'll start with 10,000 and see what happens then. Looking back on it all now, 3.5 years later, I have to laugh because we do have a great stream team, 15 or 20 people who stream all the time and interact with their communities really, really well. but we just hit 1,000 on YouTube earlier this week. So we've got some work to do there. But again, our concern was about getting the ball rolling, and that's exactly what we did. Guys, having long-term goals is really good and important. It gives you something to work towards and hopefully reap the benefits when the time comes. But for Ethan, it wasn't just a matter of getting to the end, it's about how you get there. What do you do in the meantime? Ethan wanted to get to know everyone on the team and befriend as many of them as possible, not just as names on a list, but as actual living human beings. He took the time to get to know people's stories. He wanted to be the kind of person that they could talk to if they needed it, that they could, rant to, or they could go to him for advice. He was always there to listen to people and to offer his own thoughts, whether they were wanted or not. With all of that being said, you don't want to mistake Ethan's character and kindness for being a pushover. Nobody pulled a fast one on Ethan, and if a problem ever came up, he'd be quick to address it without any regard for the consequences. For example, some of you guys might know Persia. He was the first guy we ever recruited from Mexico, a longtime member of the team who eventually became a manager and a director himself. One day he was playing Call of Duty with a couple people who were brand new to the team. He took a call and was talking in Spanish, and these people began making racist jokes about it, oh, we don't talk like that here, or whatever. Don't get me wrong, guys. Persia was a bartender in Mexico City. He could fend for himself, but Ethan wasn't gonna let it get to that point. I was at work at the time, and I remember getting a phone call while I was trying to open the safe, and Ethan said, hey, I just kicked so-and-so from the team. And I was a bit shocked to hear, what had happened, but I trusted his judgment and he knew what I expected, so it worked out pretty well. And in another example, shortly after I met him, this is probably mid-December or so, he was coming home from work or maybe his girlfriend's house, whichever, and he saw that a car had gone off the road and caught on fire. So without hesitating, he pulled over, he ran out, and he pulled the driver out of the burning car. In both of those examples, the racist scumbags on one hand and the burning car on the other, Ethan knew what the right thing to do was, and he acted without any concern for what the consequences might be. That's just the person that he was. When he wasn't busy working or going to college or doing stuff for Skirata, Ethan loved to play lacrosse. He loved to go outside and see the great outdoors of New England. He loved to ride his motorcycles with his friends for hours. He loved to spend time with his cousins, to play cards with his family, and argue politics over the Thanksgiving dinner table. He was always trying to do as much as he possibly could. So when he went through a bad breakup during the spring, it really shook him to the core. He really stopped caring about school and work, and even playing Call of Duty. He didn't have much time for that. It was a really bad patch for him. I tried to help him out to the extent that I could, and honestly, it probably wasn't enough, but I tried to get him to come out to Missouri where I lived at the time. I said, hey, come on out for a weekend or a week or whatever. Just take your mind off things. We can talk about life and hang out and all that good stuff. But in his depression, he couldn't even do that. Thankfully, toward the end of the summer, he did begin to regain a sense of direction and purpose for his life. He started playing Call of Duty again. He was so excited for World War II to come out. And he invited me to come to New Hampshire during my semester break. And I, of course, accepted. A few weeks after that, I think it was probably one of our final late-night phone calls, he called me up while I was editing a teamtage, and he told me that he was going to apply to Plymouth State University in New Hampshire. And he was a marketing major. I was too, and he knew that I didn't have anything keeping me in Missouri. So he said, why don't you look into the program and maybe you can come up here too in the spring. Obviously, it is always fun to have more friends to go to school with and do fun stuff with nearby, but Ethan was thinking about it from the bigger picture perspective too. Growing up watching FaZe, he knew all about the whole team house thing, and so with me being in New Hampshire, that could have been the beginning of a Skirata house. I gave it a lot of thought, I looked into the program, and to be honest, I was totally down for it. Now skip ahead to October 10th, 2017. I had just gotten off of work at about 11 p.m. or so, and I went to Waffle House with one of my coworkers, and while I was sitting there waiting for my food to arrive, I was just thinking to myself, this is the greatest year ever. For me personally, and for the team as well. Like, everything was going great. I was only 3 days away from flying to New Hampshire and meeting one of my best friends in person for the first time, and I couldn't be happier. But guys, I had no idea that everything had already changed. A few hours before that, halfway across the country, Ethan had finished up dinner with his mom and grandparents like always, and then he went out for an evening ride on his Yamaha bike. I want to be real with you for a second. The details of what led up to this, they don't really matter. I'm not going to get into that for our purposes today. But Ethan was riding on one of the busier roads in Concord, and he hit the back of a car. He He flew off his bike and hit his head on the pavement. From my understanding, he should have died right there, but the fire department was across the road, so they were able to respond quickly and get him to the hospital. His mom and the rest of the family arrived pretty soon. They called a priest, gave him last rites. He wasn't expected to survive the night, and I didn't find out about what happened until the next day. I got up, I went to the gym, I went to work, pretty routine day, and I got a call from his uncle while I was at work, and he tried his best. You could tell that he wasn't trying to freak me out or scare me, but when I heard what had happened, I knew the gravity of the situation. Like, there was plenty of reason to be afraid, and I was. I went home that day and I told the team what happened, and we got together. We decided that we'd do a 72-hour charity stream on this channel to raise money for the family to help pay the medical expenses. So we played Call of Duty for 72 hours nonstop. We raised about $350 or $400. Dominic joined Skirata the same day that Ethan did. They were pretty close, and he suggested that we put 1615 as our clan tag just to show solidarity while he was in the hospital. And we've had it that way ever since. There were a lot of ups and downs, and guys, people don't just bounce back from a head injury like that, okay? It just doesn't happen. They had Ethan in a medically induced coma to try and contain the damage and do what they had to do, but he wasn't totally unresponsive. They could get him to wiggle his toes on command, and if my memory serves me right, at one point they actually got a thumbs up out of him. But at the end of the day, it just wasn't enough, guys. Ethan died a little before 1 p.m. on Wednesday, October 18th, 2017. I didn't find out until the family put out a statement later that evening. I was actually sitting in the church parking lot when I heard about this, and after I'd tried to compose myself, I walked in, I lit a candle, and I walked right out. 2 days later, I was flying out to New Hampshire for the funeral. The visitation was on Saturday and the memorial service was on Sunday. And guys, I can't begin to tell you how it feels to kneel at the casket of a friend that you didn't even get to meet in the flesh in this life. Someone that you were supposed to be partying with exactly a week before. That was easily the worst weekend of my life, no doubt about it. Going back to the team, you take out a leader and a friend, kind of like the glue that holds everything together. I mean, how do you recover? It took a long time, guys, but Ethan's death ended up strengthening my resolve to make this team a success. When I was there that weekend, I made a promise to Ethan that those late night calls and the dreams and the vision of where this team would go, that would not be in vain. I would see it through, come hell or high water. I want to reiterate to you guys that for Ethan and for the team by extension, it's never been about the numbers. The goals are great, but they're ultimately secondary to the principles that drive what we do, okay? Sure, we want to have a following on YouTube and a stream team and so on. It's about reaching out and helping others. It's about helping friends in their time of need, about being honest and courageous and dependable and trustworthy. We should all aim to work hard and to be great at what we're doing, but we have to be good people first. So what's the point of all this? What do I want you to take away? First, I want you guys to remember that Ethan lived. He didn't make it to 20 years old. He didn't have a long time, but in the time that he had, he lived fully and he tried to live well. And at the end of the day, that's all any of us can do. Second, I want you to remember what 1615 means. To Ethan, it was a username. His childhood dog was named Rebel, he was born on the 16th of January, and 15 was his football jersey number. That meant a lot to him, but to us it means even more now. It means remembering the destination, but also how to get there. I'm sure the vast majority of you are very familiar with how the Call of Duty community is. There are plenty of people out there who claim to be successful. I'm making money, I have this many followers or this many subs. But the people that lie and cheat and put others down on their way to the top, they don't deserve our admiration, they deserve our pity. Whatever it is we try to do in life, whether it's Call of Duty or something completely different, we have to strive to build people up. That right there is what Ethan lived for. That's the message that he gave us to carry on. I hope and I pray that this team and all of us in it will live up to the number 1615. If we can build people up instead of tearing them down, if we can be there for people when they need it and extend a word of support instead of a subtweet, then we will have done our job well. If you're still watching, I want to say thank you for taking the time to learn about the team and the person who really made it what it is today. We will be doing a charity fundraiser for the Friendly Kitchen in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a soup kitchen where Ethan used to volunteer at, and we raise money for them every year. The fundraiser will begin October 19th and end October 24th. I'll give more information when it becomes available. We'll put out another video and check up on Twitter and Facebook for more information. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this, and I hope you have a great day.